this evening. My name is Sophie McNeil and I'm one of your Greens MLCs in the upper house. And I want to say thank you for refusing to be intimidated. Thank you for refusing to believe the lies about our peaceful movement and the gaslighting. And thank you for being here, refusing to be silent and being on the right side of history. Because all across Australia right now, tens of thousands of us are gathering to send a clear message to the genocidal Israeli government that you are not welcome here. Now we are gathering tonight on stolen Whadjuk Noongar country, and it is my honour to introduce Uncle Hedley Hayward to do Welcome for Country for us this evening. Thank you, Uncle Hedley.
Hiya, bonjour, hello and welcome. Ngalak Jurpin Wonju Nanak, Ngala Nunga Buja. I am pleased to welcome you into our Noongar country. Nikya Ngala Murat Buja, Kura Kura. This is our ancestors' land from the dream time. Nikya Ngala Kala Buja, Kura Wanti Ngani Ngala. This is our homeland of history. Jurpin Murat Ngala Buja, Kura Wanking Kedala. And as one, we are a proud people of our land. Ngala Yankin Ngalak Nunga, Nyikiang Ngalak, Ngalak Kanyini. Through history till today, we stand together, black and white. We are one.
Thank you, Uncle Hedley, for that beautiful welcome. And I'd just like to acknowledge that it is 2 weeks since many of us were here at Forest Chase and we saw that horrific terrorist attack targeting our First Nations community. And we stand with the organisers of that Invasion Day rally, with Uncle Hedley, with Uncle Herbert Brofo, Arnie Lynn, Uncle Fabian and Roxanne Moore, the organisers of that Invasion Day protest, because our movement, we stand against all forms of hatred and racism. We condemn hatred against the Jewish community, the Muslim community, and the First Nations community. And that is why we are all gathered here this evening. That is why we are here to tell the racist, genocidal Israeli government and their representatives that they are not welcome here. And the moment, friends, that President Herzog stepped foot in Australia, he should not have been welcomed with a warm handshake and a red carpet. He should have been welcomed with a set of handcuffs and arrested. And how dare Prime Minister Albanese tell us to be respectful to a man who has incited a genocide, to a man who has endorsed collective punishment. What will it take for Labor to realise the problem is not the protesters, it's what we're protesting? I'd like to acknowledge our dear Jewish friends who are with us tonight and who have played such a critical role in our movement, Jews for Palestine, Western Australia. We stand friends in the fight against anti-Semitism, and we condemn the horrific attack, the terrorist attack in Bondi against your community. And we back your call that this invitation to Herzog, that his presence here just further politicises that horrific terrorist attack. It inflames community tensions and it endangers Australian Jews. Shame. And I'd like to also acknowledge our dear Palestinian friends here tonight with us this evening, who've had so many loved ones, so many family members and friends horrifically murdered by the Israeli government over the last 2 years of this genocide. I can't imagine how it feels for them to see President Herzog welcomed so warmly to this country. After 2 years of them watching their family members being massacred by the genocidal Israeli government live on our screens, while this government did nothing. But we, the Australian people, are on your side, friends in the Palestinian community. And we are here to say, not in our name and not on our watch, Herzog, you are not welcome here. Because genocidal states are not our mates. And what do we want? Arrest Herzog. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Arrest Herzog. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Arrest Herzog. When do we want it? Now. Friends, it's my pleasure and honour to introduce the amazing Janet Parker from Jews for Palestine, Western Australia. I'm an international solidarity activist, a founding member of Jews for WA, Jews for Palestine WA, and a member of the Socialist Alliance. Thank you, Janet.
First, I want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. Land never ceded, always was, always will be Aboriginal land. And I want to acknowledge the links between the occupation and colonisation of Aboriginal land and the occupation and genocide of the Indigenous peoples of the lands of Palestine. Both peoples have experienced mass cultural erasure, land theft and colonisation, and the genocide continues. What is the last thing? Sorry, the last thing you would want to do when you want to calm a situation of fear, of anxiety and division? Answer: drop a political bomb in the middle of it. That is the impact of Albanese's invitation to the genocide, inciting Isaac Herzog and the war criminal Doron Almog. I want to be very clear. We extend our full solidarity to the victims and survivors of the horrific massacre at Bondi. Yes. We condemn the senseless, indiscriminate killing of civilians in all circumstances. But let us dwell for a moment on our slogan, that emerged in the days after the Bondi killings. Wrong in Bondi, wrong in Gaza. In addition to condemning the killing of 15 Jewish civilians at Bondi on December 14, we condemn the killing of 72,000 Palestinians, and we know it to be thousands more, who have not yet been found or identified. We condemn the killing of 20,000 children.
Yes.
We condemn the killing of 234 journalists deliberately targeted. We condemn the killing of 1,600 healthcare workers, again, deliberately targeted. We condemn the killing of 224 humanitarian aid workers, once more, deliberately targeted. The list goes on. Who, we must ask, is bringing comfort to the Palestinian community? In Gaza, in the West Bank, in the diaspora? Who is bringing comfort to the Palestinian community here in Australia at a time where it is estimated that many have lost whole generations of family members? If it were not enough that the Albanese government has refused to condemn Israel's actions, refused to impose military, trade and diplomatic sanctions, it then parades two men who have actively incited, actively facilitated the genocide of Palestinian people. They invite them as special guests. Has it never occurred to them that to bring out two men, supposedly to comfort Jewish Australians, is to say to Palestinians living in Australia, your lives are worth nothing? Is this what is meant by social cohesion? Even as political theatre, it is obscenely offensive. Yes, Zionist Jews identify with Israel, but Australian Jews are not wards of the Israeli state. Many of us receive no comfort at all from the visit of a foreign head of state charged with inciting genocide. In fact, it makes us sick with anger. Jews for Palestine extends its love and solidarity to the Palestinian community. And if we express our deepest condolences and our ongoing commitment to fight this horror with everything we've got. Jews for Palestine are among a rising tide of anti-Zionist Jews in Australia and around the globe who condemn the actions of the Israeli state, who say Israel does not speak for us. You may have seen the full-page ad that appeared in The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald today, saying just this. A statement signed by over 1,000 Australian Jews. How is it that despite our loud and repeated protestations, we are ignored or dismissed by much of the media? There is a diversity of political opinions among Jews, just like in all communities. What gives the West Australian, and this particularly, I find particularly galling as somebody who has to look at this newspaper day in and day out, what gives the West Australian the right to decide which Jewish voices will be heard and which will be ignored? I would say this is anti-Semitism. anti-Semitism. We say again, to be Jewish is not to be Zionist. To be Jewish is not to swear an unswerving allegiance to a colonial, settler, apartheid, militaristic ethno-state that commits mass murder in brazen and unapologetic fashion. And we recognise that its actions, combined with this dogged insistence on the conflation of Jewishness with Zionism, is in reality the greatest threat to Jewish safety today. To be Jewish is not to imagine that one Holocaust can justify another. Because that is what we see today. The genocide being wrought on the Palestinian people today is the Holocaust of our time. So what was the real purpose of Albanese's invitation to Herzog? Perhaps in the first instance, it was to appease the attack dogs in the Murdoch media. Yes. But that doesn't work. When they smell blood, they just want more. Predictably, its primary purpose is to once again dishonestly smear criticism of Israel as anti-Semitic. In the second half of 2025, public opinion, as reflected in the massive marches across the Sydney Harbour Bridge, as reflected in the massive march here in Perth of some 25 to 30,000. Those marches started to shift, really started to shift against the perspective against Israel as the scale of the genocide became obvious. They really we could see the shift in public opinion. The opinion makers in the corporate media started to panic, I think, as they felt that they'd lost the narrative. Well, even though the Bondi shooters had absolutely nothing to do with the peaceful mass movement in support of basic universal human rights for the Palestinians, these pro-Israel ghouls seized on the tragedy and now seek to use it as a weapon to shut us down and shut us up. That's not going to happen. We can't let it happen. We won't let it happen. Was the lesson of the Nazi Holocaust not never again? That meant never again for anyone, anywhere. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet Parker from Jews for Palestine WA, for that powerful speech. And friends, just a quick update what's happening around the country. We have seen tens of thousands of people march this evening around the country protesting Herzog's visit. So you are amongst thousands and thousands of Australians standing on the right side of history tonight, friends. And in Sydney in particular, they came out despite intense police intimidation. They showed up and they made sure their voices would be heard. But it is shameful that right now in this country, you have more chance of being arrested for peacefully protesting this genocide than the guy who incited a genocide. Shame! Absolutely. Now our next speaker is the incredible Dr. Victoria Mason from Murdoch University. She's an expert on human rights in the Middle East. She's a member of Academics for Palestine, and she taught me Middle East history when I was a wee little 18-year-old, so she certainly knows her stuff. Vicky, thank you for joining us.
Comrades, fellow humans, I acknowledge that we meet on the lands of the Whadjuk Noongar people. It's because I'm short, I think, sorry. I acknowledge that we meet on the lands of the Whadjuk Noongar people here in Bulu. Sovereignty was never ceded. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Are all connected, everyone. Today, our government shamefully rolled out the red carpet for Isaac Herzog, the President of Israel, a state that has committed genocide in Gaza. The government claims this visit is about healing and social cohesion after the horrific anti-Semitic terror attacks in Bondi last December. But let's be clear, using the grief of the Bondi massacre to justify an invited visit by Herzog is not about healing. Shame. As Jewish Australian commentator Sol Salby notes, the government is trying to paint Herzog as a Dalai Lama type of figure. But Herzog is far from a man of peace. He is the man who looked into a camera and said that an entire nation of Palestinians was responsible for October the 7th. The UN Commission of Inquiry found that those words incited genocide. Those words incited genocide. And they have called for the ICC, the International Criminal Court, to prosecute him. It doesn't get much worse than that. He is the man photographed smiling as he signed artillery shells destined for Gazan neighbourhoods. We have all seen the images of what those shells do to human bodies. I am never going to recover from the footage I've seen of Palestinian children in Gaza. Former Australian Human Rights Commissioner and Commissioner on that UN inquiry, Chris Sidoti, is clear. Incitement to genocide is a crime that stands outside the chain of command. What that means is it doesn't matter if Herzog is a figurehead. Under international law, a person who incites genocide should be arrested on arrival, not greeted with a limousine. The AFP claims Herzog has immunity. I did say I might not swear, so I'm just going to say bollocks to that. Under international law, there is no immunity for atrocity crimes. If Australia truly adhered to the rule of law, we would not grant safe harbour to those accused of the crimes of crimes. The government says this visit provides solace to the Jewish community, but as my friend Janet said, who are they listening to? Over 1,000 Jewish Australians have signed a letter printed publicly in major newspapers today saying that Herzog does not speak for us and he is not welcome here. provide genuine comfort, they would have looked to leaders who embody the profound Jewish values of tzedek, or justice, and tikkun olam, repairing the world. There are so many figures of moral standing who understand that Jewish safety and universal human rights are not in competition, but are one and the same. Instead, they chose to invite a man who has described the marriage of Jews to non-Jews as a plague. Shame. So this visit is not about cohesion. As Abraham Edwards reminds us, Herzog's visit won't address or reduce anti-Semitism. It is not something that will calm the rocky waters of sectors of the public who are outraged and horrified at our government's support for genocide. It is calculated to placate sectors of the community that are fiercely devoted to the Israeli government, that immediately sought to leverage the massacre in Bondi to press the government to adopt a stronger pro-Israel line and to crack down on Palestine solidarity. Shame. We have seen this crackdown in so many ways already, in the anti-protest laws, in the so-called hate speech legislation that doesn't actually target anti-Semites, and in the efforts to surveil and muzzle the expression of conscience against atrocities in the arts, our universities, our schools, and amongst journalists. It is unlimited. Shame. We see it in the overall Kafkaesque effort to frame the struggle for human rights for everyone as a threat to security. Shame. For Palestinian Australians, apologies, I'm going to mangle this, I think. Shamika, Badra and Ayman Qaeda remind us, Herzog's visit is a terrible cruelty. It sends the message that their harrowing and heartbreaking losses aren't important to our government, that the Palestinians murdered in Gaza are lives less grievable than others. Shame. By inviting Herzog, the government isn't creating social cohesion, they are inflaming the worst of fractures and weaponising grief to justify a political agenda. This is an absolute travesty. It is an insult to those murdered in Bondi, and it is an insult to the hundreds of thousands of people murdered in Gaza. Supporting genocide will not make the Jewish community safer. It will not make any Australian safer. Our humanity and our struggles for rights and justice are all connected, from Gaza to Iran, from Minneapolis to right here in Bourloo, where 2 weeks ago our First Nations brothers and sisters were subjected to an abhorrent terrorist attack. We have to stand our ground. We see the spiral towards fascism and we stand firm. No red carpet for incitement. No legitimacy for genocide. Free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Dr. Vicky Mason from Murdoch University. And friends all over the country at gatherings like this tonight at 6 p.m. They have done a specific chant because I don't know if you've heard, but the Queensland government announced yesterday that they are going to try and ban the chant from the river to the sea. And absolute shame. And not just ban it, but you could be liable for up to 2 years jail. So to show our solidarity with our friends in Queensland and to send a message to the powers that be here in Western Australia, I hope you join me. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the happy to be one of the first ones to be arrested. And we hope that our Western Australian police use their time and resources to crack down on the far right and the white supremacists that we know are the ones they actually should be worried about in this state. Now, our next speaker is a member of Students for Palestine who have played such an incredible role here over the last 2 years. And I'm so honoured to introduce Layla Saif. She's an activist in the National Students Union and she's a member of Students for Palestine here in Western Australia. Layla, thank you for joining us.
I'd like to first start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we stand on and recognize that this land was never ceded, always was, always will be Aboriginal land. It seems that despite our best efforts to leaflet, to put up posters on every wall in this city, to post on social media, to tell everyone we know about this protest, it seems there's still a group of people that don't understand the reason we are here today. It seems that after 2 years of continuous protests for Palestine, that after more than 500,000 Australians marched for an end of this genocide, the message has still not reached those people. In fact, those very people are so high up in their ivory towers. They are so detached from the realities of everyday Australians, from the thousands of Palestinians, that they have shamelessly invited a war criminal to this country. Shame! A war criminal who has presided over the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. A war criminal that has written, "I rely on you," onto bombs that were sent to bomb hospitals and shelters and schools in Gaza. And in the face of public outrage, the parasites that are our Australian ruling class, politicians like Penny Wong, brazenly ask us to consider the context of this visit. So let's give her the context. The context is 2 years more than 2 years of active genocide in Gaza. The context is more than 70,000 tons of bombs dropped on Gaza in the first 6 months of this genocide. The context is 335 bullets shot into Hind Rajab and her family as they hid in a car trapped under Israeli fire. The context is that the Australian ruling class is still providing Israel with weapon parts of F-35 jets that unleash absolute hellfire on the population of Gaza. Shame! The context is that Albanese and the Australian government continue to support, justify, and fund the mass murder of Palestinians. Shame! But let's be real. We all know the true aim of this visit. Isaac Herzog himself, 2 days ago, in an interview with The Australian, said, "Australia and Israel are ideal partners." Shame! He said that without Israel, Europe is at risk, the US is at risk. And we know that that is because Israel remains the watchdog of the US and of Western imperialism in the Middle East. We know that without Israel, the US and Australia would need Australia, you would have noticed that Perth is now the most expensive city to live in. You would have noticed that we are unable to fund hospitals, we're unable to fund social services, but the Australian government is more than happy to spend $368 billion in the next decade on nuclear-powered death machines. That is why our government, our media, the entirety of the Australian ruling class is trying their darn hardest to oppress this movement. That is why they have prevented the use of the word genocide when reporting on Gaza for over a year. That is why they have banned, in Queensland now they have banned the phrase "from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." That is why in New South Wales, Chris Minns and his government had tried to stop the demonstrators from marching, but oh, they marched in their thousands, they flooded the streets, they couldn't keep them back, and we're gonna do the same. More than 30 cities and towns across Australia have signed on to march. Tiny places like our very own Margaret River and Albany are marching today. Bathurst, New South Wales, Benalla in Victoria. Today we are shutting it all down. So they can sit in their high offices and sneer down at us. They can continue to smear our campaign. They can continue to threaten us with more police, more state violence, but we will not stop. And they should know that it is us that hold the real power. It is you and you and you and me who hold the real power. It's the nurses, it's the teachers, it's the construction workers, it's the sanitation workers, it's the hospitality staff that run the society. We decide our future, and our future is not that of war. It is not that of genocide. So they should know, in our thousands, in our millions, we will not stop. We will march, and march we will. We will continue to organize. We will continue to protest for Palestine. We will continue to protest for Indigenous rights. We're going to continue to protest against this hellscape, this capitalist hellscape that we live in, until we're all free, until Palestine is free, from the river to the sea.
Thank you, Layla, from Students for Palestine. It's amazing. And thank you for calling out that connection between how our so-called leaders are undermining our democracy to protect their genocidal mates. Shame. And here's an update for you, friends. This afternoon in Sydney at Bondi Beach, a man was arrested simply for yelling shame in the direction of the Israeli president. Can you believe it? That is what is happening to this country. They said your son, wow, he's from Perth. What's his name? You're not going to tell us. Fair enough. But he's from Perth, friends. This brave person is from Perth. We can claim him. But just to introduce our last speaker, and we have saved this amazing woman for last because she for 2 years has been bringing us the most powerful stories that Palestinian experience. It is the incredible Hiba Farah. She's the chair of Friends of Palestine WA. She's part of APAN doing critical work at a national level.
and we are so lucky to have her amazing leadership here in Western Australia. Thank you, Heba.
Salam, everyone. When it was said that the Israeli president is coming here to Australia on a state visit, that the red carpet is being rolled out for that war criminal, I stopped and asked myself, is this how our government sees social cohesion? That term that has been fed to us without understanding its meaning. After spending over 2 years screaming with pain in these streets, the answer to our screams of pain and despair was extending an invitation to the president of the so-called state that causes it and caused it all. The man who signed his name on missiles that were sent to bring death and destruction to my beloved city, Gaza. The man who said there are no innocent civilians in Gaza. The man whose so-called state had killed the best of us. No innocence, no children, no mothers, no fathers, no families, no lives worth sparing. Today, the hand that signed the bombs that killed tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians is shaking the hands of our so-called leaders. In an act of moral failure, the normalization of mass killing, the laundering of war crimes through ceremony, the transformation of genocide into a photo opportunity. How are we expected to move past this when the genocide is not abstract, not historical? How are we meant to move past mountains of bodies of loved ones? How are we meant to move past an entire nation's plan to erase our people? There are not distant decisions buried in archives. These are signatures on weapons, words spoken without shame, lives ended in real time, when those who ordered the killing of civilians are welcomed and honored on our soil. We are told clearly that Palestinian lives do not matter, that suffering can be managed with ceremony, that accountability can be postponed indefinitely if Israel is involved. To move past this would require forgetting, and forgetting is exactly what is being demanded of us. Forget the children under the rubble, forget the families erased, forget the statements that denied their innocence, forget the tens of thousands of innocent civilians that were killed. The red carpet is not neutral, it's a signal. It tells the world that some crimes are negotiable. Some deaths are acceptable. And some hands are clean enough to shake, no matter how much blood they carry. How dare they talk about moving past this? Moving past what? The rubble, the mass graves, the deliberate erasure of civilian innocence, the children, the little hands, the little feet, the little eyes, and the screams. Moving past the screams that live in our heads, the ones that haven't faded away yet. Moving past what? The fact that there has been no accountability, no justice, not even a pause in the killing. All for what? Only red carpets and silence? We are being told very clearly that power matters more than human life. And that Palestinian blood is cheap enough to ignore when it comes to our government. We are being told here that he is here to mourn the 15 victims killed in Bondi. What about us? You're bringing our killer here before our eyes instead of locking him up. You're celebrating his visit. This visit is an insult to every victim, every survivor, every person who still believes our people's lives are sacred. This visit tells the world that you can sign bombs, justify the slaughter of civilians, deny the humanity of an entire population, and still be honored by our government. This visit says that a genocide of my people is not a deal breaker, that the mass murder is forgivable if you are useful enough. My friends, we are not required to accept this. We are not obligated to be polite in the face of atrocity. And because silence is not an option, it is a cowardice, we are all here. To criminals who order the destruction of an entire population. And history will not forget red carpets rolled on our blood. And it will remember who shook hands with the killers while tens of thousands of innocents were buried beneath the rubble. We will not move past this by pretending it is normal. We will not move past this by looking away. We move forward only by refusing complicity. By naming this for what it is, and by rejecting the lie that genocide can ever be a time in history. Genocide is when history stops. From this day on, I will see the red carpet differently. It's not red from tradition, it's soaked with children's blood. In my eyes, they're not walking on fabric. They're walking on crushed bodies, on my people, flattened so power doesn't have to trip over and look down. Every step on that carpet is a decision to ignore the killed. Every smile is paid for with someone else's child. You do not roll out a red carpet over mass graves unless you've decided that these lives never mattered. We all know that what's being honored here isn't diplomacy, it's permission. Permission to continue the killing. Permission to deny innocence. Permission to wash blood away with protocol. That carpet isn't welcoming a guest, it's covering up a crime scene. And history will remember who chose to walk on it. We are here to remind the world that we are not part of this disgrace. We are here and will remain here to give that war criminal the welcome he really, really deserves. So friends, if we are told to be quiet, to be patient, to wait for our turn for justice, and our answer to all that is total rejection. Palestine is not going to disappear because it's inconvenient to the killers and their supporters. Palestine will remain in our hearts, in our minds, on our lips. History does not remember those who stayed comfortable, it remembers those who stood their grounds. And now, more than ever, we say it and we say it loud. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And Herzog to the ICC.
Okay, friends, we're about to march. Thank you, Heba, for that amazing speech. And just before we gather at the back, friends, to march, I want you to know that this is not the only war criminal visiting from the Israeli apartheid state this month in Australia. The Albanese government has given a visa to Ron Dermer. He is a former Minister of Strategic Affairs. He was in the Netanyahu war cabinet, and he is coming to Perth on Thursday, the 26th of February. So follow FOPWA, Friends of Palestine WA, on social media, because we will not let this stand. And we want you to join in as well. The next march is on the 8th of March to recognise International Women's Day and the incredible efforts of Palestinian women. So just on our march route tonight, friends, we gather at the back, we go down Murray Street Mall, south on William, east through Hay Street Mall, north up Barracks, west through Murray Street Mall and back to Forest Place. I hope you know the city better than me, but let's follow those guys at the front. But as we leave, friends, I want you to keep in mind what Heba just told us. How Palestinian Australians feel watching Herzog welcomed to this country by our government. And how we will never forgive and we will never forget how this Albanese government used the apparatus of the Australian state to welcome this war criminal. So as you march this evening, friends, make sure the world sees how he is really being welcomed to this country